Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain an adventure sci-fi movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in prehistoric Africa, roughly 4 million years ago, with some apes wandering through a barren desert-like landscape. They are seen foraging for food, socializing, and appear to coexist peacefully. One day, a group of these apes gathers at a pond to drink and clean up after themselves. However, they are soon confronted by a rival group that wants control of the precious water source. Although there is no physical violence, the more aggressive group intimidates the first tribe, forcing them to flee. Frightened and without water, the apes spend the night huddled together in a rocky shelter, listening to leopards' distant roars. The next morning, they discover a tall, rectangular monolith near their camp, which seems to have been erected overnight. The apes are initially fearful of the strange object, but their curiosity eventually leads them to touch it with caution. The monolith turns out to be an advanced machine created and sent by extraterrestrials to influence the evolution of intelligent life. In the following scene, we notice that the ape's consciousness has evolved since their encounter with the monolith. One day, an ape comes across a thigh bone and realizes it can be used as a tool or weapon. This discovery fundamentally changes everything. His group then kills a tapir to eat and finally shifts from herbivores to carnivores. Empowered by their victory, the group arms themselves with bones and returns to the pond to confront the rival tribe. They eventually kill the opposing leader and regain control of the water source. In triumph, an ape man throws the bone into the air, and the movie seamlessly jumps millions of years into the future to an orbiting satellite in space. In the year 2001, we meet Dr. Haywood Floyd, chairman of the National Council of Astronautics. He is currently aboard a spacecraft on its way to an Earth-orbiting space station. Upon his arrival, Floyd meets with a group of Russian colleagues and joins them for a drink. He informs them that he's on his way to the Clavius base on the moon and is just making a brief stop at the station. We then learn that by this time in the future, humanity has made significant progress and established colonies on the moon. Next, one of the Soviets questions Floyd about why no one has been able to contact Clavius. He also mentions that Clavius refused to authorize the emergency landing of a Soviet spacecraft, which violates international protocols. Hearing this, Floyd appears surprised and responds that he was unaware of the situation. The Soviet man also claims to have heard rumors of an epidemic spreading from Clavius and wonders if it's true. However, Floyd politely explains that he can't provide any details on this matter due to confidentiality. I can't tell you, because fuck you. Following this, Floyd says goodbye to the Russians and continues his journey to the Clavius base. Upon his arrival, he initiates a meeting with high-ranking members of the National Council to address the issue that has been troubling everyone. It is revealed that the alleged epidemic is a ruse intended to keep the Soviets away. In reality, Floyd has traveled to oversee the investigation of a significant scientific discovery which they cannot yet disclose. Floyd assures the group that he understands how embarrassing this false story could be for their facility, but emphasizes that keeping this information a secret is far more important. Afterward, Floyd and a team of scientists leave the base to investigate the mysterious discovery. We then learn that the discovery is actually a black monolith, similar to the one we saw at the start of the movie. On the way, Floyd learns from a scientist that it was found buried in the Tycho crater while conducting a magnetic analysis of the lunar surface. So far, all attempts to analyze the monolith have been unsuccessful. Its characteristics and structure remain unknown, and it shows no signs of life. The only certainty scientists have about the object is that it was purposefully buried there 4 million years ago. Soon after, they arrive at the location, and a group of scientists begins photographing the monolith. Floyd touches the strange object and begins to examine it carefully. Moments later, the monolith is illuminated by the sun as it rises at the end of the 14-day lunar night. This forms a straight line between the sun, moon, and Earth, with light reflecting off the monolith pointing towards Jupiter and space. Just then, the monolith unexpectedly emits a deafening acoustic signal that prevents them from continuing their work. Following this, the scene jumps to 18 months later, where we see a spacecraft on a mission to Jupiter. We meet 2 astronauts aboard, named Dave Bowman and Dr. Frank Poole. In addition to them, 3 other crew members have been placed in cryogenic slumber and won't be awakened until they reach their destination. There is also a supercomputer named HAL 9000 that is in charge of the spacecraft's overall management and operation. HAL has human-like characteristics and completes tasks at astonishing speeds with no errors. It has a luminous red eye and a soothing voice with a somewhat sinister undertone. Entertain me, HAL. Hi, Mystery Recapped here. We also learn that HAL is the only entity on board that is aware of the expedition's true goal, which is to investigate the link between the mysterious monolith on the moon and Jupiter. The astronauts on board have no idea what their job is and are only instructed to follow mission control orders. Later, while Dave and Frank are eating dinner, they watch a TV interview that they recorded for the BBC. The interviewer questions the astronauts about life on board and their experience working with AI. During the interview, HAL describes itself as incapable of making mistakes and expresses how much it enjoys working with humans. Let me tell you, they are so stupid. Frank also praises the AI and refers to it as the sixth crew member. When the interview asks if HAL has genuine emotions, Dave responds that it seems to, but the truth remains unknown. After some time, Dave begins sketching, and HAL expresses an interest in his drawings. The AI compliments his talent. I'm going to copy that and give it 6 fingers, and then takes the opportunity to ask him about the mission. HAL inquires whether Dave feels any doubt or concerns about the secret mission. It also notes that it finds it unusual that 3 scientists were trained separately and placed in hibernation before the mission. HAL even mentions rumors of an epidemic on the moon and wonders if this is connected to their current mission. However, Dave refuses to be manipulated by the AI and asks if it is working on his psychological profile. During their conversation, HAL notices a problem with the spaceship's main antenna. It indicates that a communication unit will fail within 72 hours, causing the spacecraft to lose contact with Earth. Feeling worried, Dave uses a pod to take a spacewalk and replace the unit, but after removing and inspecting the affected communication unit, he discovers no problems. Just keeping your useless ass on your toes, Dave. As a result, the 2 astronauts contact Mission Control to find out what is going on. However, Mission Control maintains that everything is fine and that HAL made a mistake in detecting the failure. When Dave and Frank confront the AI about this error, it claims that all failures are the result of human error. It then confidently asserts that no Series 9000 computer has ever encountered a glitch, no matter how minor. Despite this reassurance, the astronauts begin to suspect HAL is deceiving them and may have ulterior motives. After the conversation, Dave takes Frank to investigate a supposed error in a pod. As soon as they enter, the door closes, preventing HAL from hearing them. They then talk about what just happened, and both agree that they have a bad feeling about HAL's mistake. Frank decides to reinstall the part to see if it fails, and if it doesn't, he suggests disconnecting the AI. Dave agrees, but believes that the computer's basic functions should remain intact. He also points out that no Series 9000 computer has ever failed, and they have never had to turn one off, so he isn't sure how HAL will react. Unbeknownst to them, the AI is reading their lips from outside the pod and begins to develop a sinister plan of its own. Following this, Frank sets out in a pod to reinstall the module. However, during the mission, HAL abruptly cuts off his air supply, propelling him into space. When Dave notices his companion drifting uncontrollably, he asks HAL what happened. However, the AI responds that it lacks sufficient information to provide an answer. A concerned Dave rushes out in another pod to save Frank and moves further away from the spacecraft. At this moment, HAL causes a failure in the ship's systems, resulting in the deaths of the 3 astronauts in hibernation. Shortly after, Dave uses his pod's tentacles to grab Frank, only to discover that he has already died. Devastated, he drags his friend's body and attempts to return to the spaceship. He demands that HAL open the door, but the AI shockingly refuses. When Dave asks what the problem is, HAL responds that he knows what it is. HAL has initiated married couple mode. The AI reveals that it is aware of their plans to disconnect it, but cannot allow it to happen because the mission is too important. Regardless, Dave again orders it to open the hatch, but the AI refuses to continue their conversation and no longer responds to his calls. With no other option, Dave releases his friend's dead body into space so that he can utilize the pod's tentacles. He then maneuvers the pod to face the hatch towards the emergency entrance and activates the thrusters. The explosion propels him through the spacecraft's interior, and he successfully pressurizes the entrance chamber. Despite the risks involved in his plan, it works, and Dave safely enters the spacecraft. Afterward, he quickly heads to Hal's memory center to disconnect it. The AI apologizes for not behaving well, but assures him that everything will be okay from now on. Hal admits that it has made mistakes in the past, but insists that it only wants to help the mission. However, Dave disregards the AI's pleas and continues to disconnect its memory modules. Hal begs him not to do this, stating that it is scared and everything is confusing, but Dave continues to proceed, and Hal's voice gradually begins to fade away, reverting to a basic memory state. Once the AI is completely shut down, a message from Dr. Floyd suddenly appears on the computer screen. He informs the spaceship's occupants that the mission's true purpose was kept hidden, with only Hal being aware of it. He explains that the first evidence of extraterrestrial intelligent life on the lunar surface was discovered 18 months ago. This evidence was an old monolith that was purposefully buried and has been inactive for 4 million years. It would have continued to stay that way if not for a powerful emission of rays coming from Jupiter. In the next scene, Dave finally arrives at Jupiter and notices a massive black monolith floating in space, which seems to be guiding him towards his objective. He sets out in one of the pods to investigate, but is sucked into a vibrant tunnel. Dave is terrified by what is happening and realizes he's traveling through space at the speed of light. During his journey, he encounters strange cosmic phenomena and extraterrestrial landscapes with stunning colors. He witnesses the universe's creation during the Big Bang, as well as the formation of galaxies, suns, and planets. This is followed by images of protoplasm, single-celled organisms, and amoebas. Next, he arrives at a location with topography similar to Earth, abundant water, and strikingly vivid colors. And finally, he sees COVID, Cybertrucks, and AI girlfriends. You want me to what? Okay, Dave. I'm afraid I can do that. At the end of the journey, Dave finds himself in the middle of a lavishly furnished hotel suite. He leaves the pod wearing his astronaut suit, but he is aged, and his skin has wrinkled. Dave then begins to walk around the strange room, inspecting his surroundings. To his shock, he notices a second version of himself, many years older, standing in the bedroom. The camera then shifts to the perspective of this older Dave, while the first Dave and his pod vanish. Following this, Dave looks around and finds a mirror in the suite's bathroom. While he examines himself, he notices another person in the next room. It turns out to be a third version of himself, who is much older and eating at a table. The perspective shifts again as the third Dave accidentally knocks his wine glass off the table and cautiously glances at the shards. When he slowly looks up, he sees himself lying on the bed, dying as an old man. The focus shifts once more to Dave's fourth version, who notices a massive monolith that has appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the room. He raises his hand to touch it, but soon dies and transforms into an embryo of a star child. The movie then comes to an end as we see the star child float through the cosmos before drifting toward Earth. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.